get better.
All right, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Okay. I'd like to introduce you to the Burlington Southern Railroad. It's jointly owned by the Burlington Northern and the Southern Pacific. It operates from Dunsburg, California to Portland, Oregon. And the SPNS line from Portland to Spokane, Washington is also modeled. The year is 1973. Now the BS line, as it's known, uses all sorts of motive power. It uses motive power from the Great Northern, the Northern Pacific, Southern Pacific. I just couldn't make up my mind as to a prototype, so I went with the Proto Freelance. It's a timetable and train order operation. The timetable, along with the dispatcher, regulates the movement of different trains. Now, I'm going to move you around a little bit here.
Hey, John, you want to if you can, flip your camera horizontally.
That way?
There you go. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, when you come in, this is some of the stuff you see. This is some of the paperwork that's involved. We have a timetable. I'm going to go over here to the dispatcher's desk. It's easier to see it. The timetable is not a traditional timetable, which has the classes on the outside moving into first class. What I did was I went with basically, we go by the order that they run. It's easier for people to find their train because, as you see, there's 47 trains on that timetable, and we run them all in a 6-hour session with an hour for lunch. The dispatcher's board is here. I'm going to come out a little bit. It controls the main line turnouts through JMRI. There is some signaling being installed. We've got a staging yard. This is all route controlled. If you want a particular, say you want track 234, you click on the gray button by 234, it lines up all the switches and lights that light. We can set all the signals to red. I don't want to do that right now. We could set all the turnouts to green or to the main line, which I just did. It has detection on it. There's a train here in Medford. That's the Medford turn doing some switching. There's a train on the Cascade Cutoff, train number 1. So the dispatcher can basically control all sorts of things here. There's a phone system on the layout. I had a homemade system that I had jerry-rigged together, but I got to tell you, this was $45 for the PBX, and then I just used, garbage phones that everybody was getting rid of anyway.
What device were you using there, John?
On the PBX?
Yep. Do you know what company makes it?
It was recommended to me by Mike Martin, a guy down in Warsaw, Indiana, and it was basically just on eBay. And if you look around for one, it's an 8-line PBX, and they run about $45. Now they might be about $55.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We use car cards, and I noticed on some of the presentations, car cards were used differently. I used the Micromark car card. This is for the SP boxcar number 659266. It's brown. It's going from, I can zoom in here, the team track. You see it says shipper at the North Bedford Industrial Park, and it's going to Interbay Yard in Seattle. It's a less than carload freight. So, it just goes to the agent up at Interbay. And then when he gets done with it, he's going to ship it. I just flipped the car card. He's going to ship it from Seattle over to the electronics store, Omron Company, and that's going to go to the freight house in Portland. We'll see all that in a little bit. Alrighty. Each destination has its own card box. Let me give you a little view of the railroad as I walk over here. It's a large layout. Okay, this is the North Medford Industrial Park. And there's the car card boxes. And if you note, each one has either pickup, hold, set out, or off spot. When you're setting a car out, say we wanted to take these cars here and put them to Sunshine Grain, they go in front of the set out, then they're done. And then Sunshine Grain, these indicate that there are no pickups for that. My good friend Joe Berger in Warsaw made these up. They're pretty nice. Okay, let's make up a train. I'm gonna go over here to Portland. Oops, I forgot something. Oh well, I got to walk back, so you get another view. You get another view of the whole railroad. Sorry. The yard master in Portland and in Dunsmore has a cheat sheet. And that cheat sheet will tell him when his next train is. The next train, the first train is number 201. It's the Portland to Dunsmore number 1. It's departure. It leaves at 12:01. It goes southbound. It's going to have engine 805 on it. And it's on the arrival departure track. And there's a car limit of 20. Now, it's important to tell your yard guys how long your train should be. It has to fit in certain sidings for certain meets or passes or whatever. So he has already made up part of it. These are yard cards, we call them. I'll bring this up. This is a multi-use one. It could be used for train 201, 203, or 207. Car limit 20. Portland to Dunsmore cars. Has cars for Dunsmore, Weed, Ashland, Medford, North Medford, Winston, LA, and Sacramento. What I try to get the guys to do is to put them in order that they're on the car card. On a train like this, it's going from one major yard to another, so it really doesn't matter. But on some of these, give you a little shot of the yard. On some of these, it does matter because of switching, because of the layout of the town itself. Below Portland is the town of Medford. And you basically want to put, I've been doing some work here, so it's a little bit messed up. You want to put the cars for Sunshine Grain over there, the blue hopper, ahead of cars for the junkyard and for Queensley Furniture, which is over there. It just makes it a lot easier for the operator. And also what we've got, I'm gonna try to bring this up and show this. This is a cheat sheet you can make up for your yard guys. If he's got a car for, say, Sacramento, that goes to 201. If he's got a car for the Dolls, and that's how that's pronounced. The California guys and Oregon guys can bear with me on that one. And that goes to 362. So these little cheat sheets help out a lot. When the guy's trying to make up a train, he says, well, where do I put that car? Well, there you go. Now, if you just look at the industry, I've tried to take the major industries and put down what train they go on to, the cars would go on. Well, while we're here in Portland, give me an overall view of Portland. And it's not done. And my layout's made on paint foam. 2-inch, number 250 Owens Corning foam. You can't quite walk on it. There's certain places I can. That's my cheat of the Portland station. It's not right, but it's close enough for me. There's a few things on this railroad that are kind of neat. If a train is approaching, oops,
Yeah, we seem to have lost your video there, John.
Am I there?
Yep, you're back.
Okay, sorry. When a train or when an engine approaches the engine terminal, I wasn't going to do this, but I think I just will. When he hits a certain portion of the track, that gate opens up. And somebody's been playing with my gate. I had some visitors here. And when he leaves that area, he says, "Hey, Charlie, close the gate." And the gate closes behind him. All these are little tricks that you can do with the route function of JMRI. Okay, there's also a bunch of breakouts of the turntable or of the timetable at each town. This is a breakout of Portland. I've got departures there, arrivals there. Each town has that. Here's the town of Albany up there. That's so you don't have to look at your whole turntable or timetable. Each operator gets a copy of the timetable, but it's easier for him to just to glance at those. This is Albany, where there are helpers stationed to get up the hill. We go from that level there to that level there, just up that hill. It's a 2% grade, and it's all total 70 feet. It's 35 feet across the layout. Okay, speaking of what the operator gets, when he comes in, he gets a clipboard with the instructions, a pencil, a switch stick. I'm just gonna throw these. Just the general instructions of what's expected of him. He gets what I call a single line map, so you can see where each town is. It's a copy of the timetable. And also a map of the layout room. This cuts down on guys saying, "Hey, where's Portland? Where's Dunsmore?" And it just makes my life a lot easier. Speaking of Dunsmore, a buddy of mine, Chuck Hart, used to live in California, and he says Dunsmore wishes it looked like this. I was there about 4 years ago. I basically took the track in Dunsmore, and there's a small yard beyond it. I combined them just side by side. Okay. Each town, like Tacoma here, which is up here, I don't have the backdrop painted in yet. There'll be a ship back there. Each town gets instructions, especially if it's an industrial park like Tacoma or Winchester down here. They'll get instructions as to how to operate that yard. I run NCE wireless. There's also a, I'm going back to my dispatcher now. There's also a setup for the Wi-Fi.
Hey, John, as long as we're asking, one of the questions is, what are you using for your detection hardware?
I use BD20s from NCE, and they go to what they call an AIU, auxiliary input unit, I think is what it stands for. And then that feeds to your brain of NCE, and it also feeds to JMRI. The switches or the turnoffs are controlled. The remote turnouts are controlled by switch 8s, which I guess the Digitrax version would be a DS64. And these are the signals I've got. I found in some of the places, as they were getting rid of the semaphores, they would keep some of the semaphores and go with dwarfs or smaller signals. I've got USS signals that are 3D printed. There's my glorious 3D printer. And then I've also gotten, there's one being made, being assembled. I run it with a little, I thought I had a servo out here, but I guess I don't. I run them on micro servos. And for the top part, for the Burlington northern part, this is what my workbench looks like, so I don't care. I print them and put LEDs in them. Next trip over to Portland, I'll show you the signal bridge. So this is where the Burlington Southern goes away, and this is the town of Wishram. It goes away, and that's the main line back into that corner, back to Seattle. And you go around that curve and go on up and you go up to Pasco. This is one of the main reasons why I built this layout, was the bridge at Wishram. It's that part rotates, not in the real world, or in the real world it used to. And then they made this, which is a lift bridge. Like I said, eventually I get stuff in place and I gradually improve it. And then the neat thing about this bridge is it splits in the middle. And part of it goes that way, and part of it goes towards Wishram. And I just thought that was neat, so I thought I would model that area. Then I found out that Joe Fugate and Bruce Chubb are also doing basically the Siskiyou line too. So, okay, some more scenery. Trying to think of what I've forgotten here.
Well, if you're okay, there's a bunch of questions from the group. Can I hit you with those?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. The first question, I'm just going to go backwards for the people who have asked. Somebody asked, are you planning to put plexiglass guards on the fascia near the semaphores, protection from operator elbows?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me take you back over to here.
That's fine. A related question, what electronics do you use to drive the servos with?
Tam Valley Depot. It's Tam Valley Depot stuff. I don't recall the actual. Yeah.
Good enough.
Here's some of the plexiglass. A buddy of mine, Al Van Blerkum, he's passed on, but he built a lot of these buildings, and they're very nice buildings.
Oh yeah.
I put plexiglass there. I plan on getting rid of this because while my elbow doesn't hit it, my short sleeve shirt does. It catches it.
Yeah, that could be bad.
That's got to be tapered.
All right. Scott Pandorf asked, any issues with the large clipboards and crew movement? He uses smaller ones.
Well, some of the guys didn't like the clipboards because they say that they can't put their card deck in them or whatever.
Got it.
And if you notice, I give them these little clips. And once they started using the clips, it's not too bad. Plus, I have all sorts of places to hook clipboards while they're working.
Got it. How many operators are needed in an operating session? Your op session site says 18 to 26. Is that still current?
That's still current.
Okay.
I
Go
run,
ahead.
there's 3 guys per yard. There's 3 guys in the dispatcher's office. There's 3 guys, or there's a guy here at Winchester. Sometimes there's a guy up here at Tacoma. A lot of times they run the same guy. And there's a guy over there at that industrial park on the lower level.
Got it. Are the 3D printed signal files available somewhere?
I sell them. I sell the signals.
Okay.
So,
well, tell you what, if you want to send me a link to your sales site, I will send it out as part of the follow-up.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm just going back through the comments. Everybody who's asking about things about how big the layout is, if you go to that operatingsessions.com link in the chat, it has a lot of that information. Seth Newman says he likes the yard-specific lineups. As a yard master, you want an idea of what trains you're concerned about and when without having to search through trains you don't need to work. Very nice job aids. Chuck Hart put in a link to the name of the telephone system for people who are asking.
Chuck Hart's a regular operator here.
Yep. Brad Brodert asks, are car cards handwritten or printed? It looked like they were handwritten.
They're handwritten.
Okay. Bench work elevations, it looks like, where was it? Between 36 and 70 inches.
Right.
Square foot of the layout room, 550 square feet. Or no, 62 by 35. Main line is 550 feet.
Yeah.
How long is a session? You said about 6 hours, and you're using a fast clock of
2 to 1.
2 to 1.
We start about we gather around 11 o'clock. 11:30 is a briefing, and 12 o'clock the clock goes on, and then about 2:30 or so we break, and it should be a half-hour lunch, but always turns into 45 minutes or maybe an hour. When you get 25 people together who haven't seen each other in a while, they tend to gather. And during that time, a little tip to you operators, that's a good time for you as an owner to get down and reset the fast clock, turn it back a little bit normally, and try to solve any issues that were brought up during the first part of the session.
Got it. We got another question about some areas of the layout look like quite a reach for uncoupling. Any issues, or does it just work?
Most everything is 30 inches or less. Okay. The stuff, let me turn this. The switching here, I mean, there's my hand. I can get to that.
Yeah.
That's a long one. Those switches back there are remote controlled naturally. And then the longest reach on the layout was just added about 6 months ago. And that's out to track 9 at Dunsmore. And that's not, I mean, it's not too long.
Right. Let me see. I think I've got all the, one last, what are you using for underdeck lighting? Look like they're fluorescent tubes there.
Fluorescent tubes, little, I don't know if you can see it or not because I can't see what I'm shooting.
Yeah, we can kind of see there.
This kind of, the under cabinet lights, and it's a mixture of LED and fluorescence. I'm slowly switching to LEDs.
Yeah, I so love the LED stick-on strip lights.
Right.
They're gorgeous.
They tend to be a little bit bright.
Yeah. I think I use the soft white ones, and they're not nearly as, or the warm white. So, I think I've gotten everybody's questions answered. Okay. If there's any more questions, sort of last call for questions. Here we go. Wayland Moore is asking, do the yards keep up with incoming traffic?
That's why there's 3 guys in the yard.
Good answer.
Yeah, they do, because at the very start, it's a little hectic. But I normally have 3 or 4 trains already made up for the yard guys. So they're working on trains that are going to go out in another hour or so.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. And somebody's question, is it possible to operate under current social distancing guidelines? I'm guessing the answer is no.
No.
Yeah.
I've got, I'm a scuba diver. I've got some scuba stuff. We can all rubber up.
Right, right. Let's see. There's a question about how long does staging take for a 6-hour session?
It takes me about 2 to 3 hours to restage.
Okay.
I didn't show the LA staging yards. I didn't, or the Spokane. This is Spokane. That's only about 6 tracks. I don't even know what's up there anymore right now. And then the big one is here at what I call Los Angeles.
Got it.
And the track that the pole drag is on is actually a loop. So I can send a train around that loop, back it into the prospective yard track, and just flip the cars. So it takes about 3 hours.
And do you have any passenger trains? It looks like I thought I saw one back there.
Yeah, there's that beautiful little
Sunset or what, Sunset Limited or no?
Sunset. It's the
Daylight. Yep.
It's a Coast Starlight is what that actually was. And
there's a question about, do you have too many or too few cars on the layout? I'm not quite sure what that means, but
well, there's only 700 on the layout.
Okay.
I think I've taken a lot of the cars off, so it tends to help.
Got it. And we've got 2 last questions, and we're going to cut it off so we can go to the next person. How are the passenger trains operated? I mean, you have a timetable, correct?
Have a timetable, and they don't go very far.
Okay.
There's number 1 and number 2 right there, and the number 2 actually comes on first at 1800, then 1810, then 1820. It's gone.
Okay.
And then 1820, number 1 arrives. 1830, 1840, and that's it. And also the number 12, the original. Where's number 12? Number 12 is over here.
Okay.
There's number 12. It's just the morning commuter type thing.
Yep.
By the way, these cars were made by Jim Messino, and they took, last year or year before, they took first place at passenger cars for the NMRA. He built those by hand.
Those are gorgeous.
And he wanted me to have them on the layout.
Yep. Okay. All right. Last question: is there significance to his color shading? I guess the color coding on your charts there on the
right
on your timetable and so on.
If you look, the orange is Great Northern, the green's Burlington Northern, the pink is the Burlington Southern.
Got it.
And by the way, if you notice that on these breakouts, this is for the dowels, and that's highlighted with a yellow background, so you can say, okay, I'm in the dowels, and this area here is what I want to pay attention to. Got
it. All right. Well, John, we thank you so much for presenting. For the people, if there's additional questions, if you want to send them to editor@opsig.org, I will make sure that John gets them. Okay. Right. So, John, thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right. Next up, Ralph Heiss was going to present. Unfortunately, Ralph is having video issues, so we're going to go to our backup presenter. Thomas Stevens is from Dallas-Fort Worth, and he's going to be talking about how to operate on a layout that wasn't originally designed for operations. The Texas Northern Club has moved several times from a mall to, looks like they're in their own building now. So We're going to give him the floor.
And I need to share my screen.
All right.
And be unmuted.
Go ahead, Thomas. You're unmuted and you can share your screen.
Okay. Let's try this. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so this is operating on the Texas Northern. Brief history, we started in the 1980s as a modular club. In the 1990s, we became a permanent layout. This was before I joined. We spent 15 years in a mesquite warehouse that's in Texas, so no air conditioning, minimal heat, so we were seasonal. I remember there was one time that an NMRA bus full of people came up on the tour and said, nope, we're not getting in there. This was in June. Our mesquite warehouse was sold out from under us. The landlord came in one day and said, oh, by the way, we're not really renewing your lease. You've got 6 months to find a new place. So we found a storefront in Collin Creek Mall. We were there for about 2 years. Our membership doubled there, so that was actually a good move for us. And then Collin Creek Mall is demolished at the moment. So we've got a storefront that we found, and we've been there about a year. We were just getting operations started again in February. We had like 3 sessions, and then the coronavirus hit. So we're not quite up to where we were at this, where we were, but it is what it is. So here's our layout map. As you can see, it was designed back in the 80s as modular, so it's still modular. And it's basically got 2 outside main lines going around. It's got a 3rd main line that goes across the bridge, around up a steep hill to Benson. That's actually 2 levels there. And then back down around and across the bridge, so the mountain line goes under itself, and the main lines disappear in a tunnel here and come out over there. It was not designed to operate, but we figured out how to get operations working on it. So if there's any question about the map. So the first thing we did was we did a survey, found out what industries we had, what industries we needed to put in, how many spots or cars go to each industry, what type of cars go to each spot, what locations are logical for a local turn, that's grouping of industries. So if you go back to the map, you can see we've got the locations marked. So down at the bottom, there's Tulsa. To the right of that, there's Hobson. There's Palestine in the middle. That's an engine yard with some other things on there. Up at the top, there's the Russellville Industrial Park, and there's the U.S. Steel at Gary. On the far right, there's Hartsdale, and we'll get into that in a little bit later. You'll notice right smack dab in the middle is Cook Yard, and that turned out to be the focal point of our operations. So I was talking to our operations guru, which is Mike Railing, and he says we operate like a division point. So everything comes into the yard, gets sorted, gets put out to either a local or a interchange or a staging train. We did the usual and customary. You've got to have good track work. You've got to have working turnouts. Some of the turnouts that we're using, we hadn't used for like 15 years, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, we got to fix this. Make sure there's no gauge issues. Ongoing updates to the physical plant. As soon as we find something, our superintendent comes in and fixes it. He's really good about that. And I see some spelling issues in here. So it should be metal wheels, not shields. Metal wheels in gauge, Katy couplers at the right height, NMRA weight standards plus about 1 ounce. We do regular push-pulls of 50 or 60 cars, so a little bit extra weight sometimes helps. We've got
Quick question for you. Are
Sure.
all of the cars at clubs I've been at, you had people who could bring in cars, and there were some that were club owned. How do you handle that? Or are you going to get to that?
About 10% are club owned. The rest are owned by club members. I think I've got about a third of the cars on there are mine. The other third, thereabouts, are Mike, and then there's various other people that have donated cars for use. So it's a mix, but it has to be in operating. It has to have a car card. So we've got a car card for each car. We settle on simulating a division point yard, and until Mike told me that last night, it didn't occur to me. But I went back and looked in. I've got a book, division points on the Santa Fe, and looking through there, there's a lot of Santa Fe division point yards that pretty much match what we're doing. So we've got staging and interchange trains enter into the east end of the yard. They're classified and they go out the west. They're classified based on destination. The trim job is basically our dispatcher. He calls crews for outgoing trains after he gets them made up. So we don't really have a dispatcher as such, but we're not really the strictest of operating, and we're not a specific line. So we've got sections on the layout that are old stuff like Route 66, and we've got stuff that's modern like Russellville. Operators are basically bring your own power. Sometimes we see steam engines running next to G4, the T4 GEs, and it's whatever DCC locomotive they want to bring. And if you come and you don't have a locomotive, one of us will loan you something. So, a lot of layouts are specific to an area or a road, or here's just the location that I'm doing. And we never did that. Starting as a modular layout, each module was a separate thing, and we've been gradually blending them into areas. And but that's an ongoing project. Each train has a card with a name, destination, and unfortunately I forgot to take a picture of that. I was planning on having more of this next week. But it's got the name, it's got the destination, it's got the number and the type of cars. On the back of the card is the blocking, which is how many cars go to which industry. And that's pretty much optional for the trim job, except for Benson. That job is so tight up there, you have to have it correctly blocked. Otherwise, you've got to come down off the mountain to resort things. We've got a train sequence for the trim operator to say which trains to do next. We've got the trim list here, which is all the cars that go on each one. And you can see it's got specific numbers of specific cars. We've got waybills inside our car cards, and that's the heart of the operation. The number of waybills determine how many cars are scheduled for each location. They're four-sided bills. They're set, and they set the pattern for each car. We've got extra waybills, so when it goes into interchange, sometimes the waybills get swapped out. So you don't see the same car always going back and forth between the same places. So if you swap out the waybill now, instead of going to Drywell Inks, it's now going to Purina. About 80% of the waybills are one cycle on the layout and 3 for staging or interchange. And I misspelled Mike's name. I didn't have time to go back and do this. It's the joys of being the backup presenter. He did the waybill analysis, and he keeps them up to date. He's the guy that sets the pattern for the whole layout. Here's a waybill example. We do it in spreadsheets. This shows the 4 points, and this has a typo in there. There should be the 4s on the right should be 3s. I think this is when he was first setting up. That's an example. Here's a car card example. We print these from the spreadsheet. I've got it available. I need to update it. The open source that we're using is updated, so I need to go back and redo the automatic print. But this basically prints out on a page, and then you cut and paste, and you wind up with your car cards. And you can customize it. So the middle cell here shows what the cell numbers are. So you start on the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and fill it in, and then it prints out. The waybill starting notes, we had one waybill for car. We started small, and we recommend this. Only 2 to 3 waybills for each spot. So that's 2 to 3 cars. And you build one train at a time. So there's staging industry, or staging industry, interchange industry. And you do 4 to 5 cars per train. And as the kinks are worked out, we added more cars and more trains. Less is more. We usually have 2 locals and 2 interchange trains working at the same time. That's due to space and track usage. You don't want to have Hobson and Tulsa working at the same time, because they need the same local yard for runarounds, and they get in each other's way. It's like you don't want to do the Russellville local and the Russellville ADM at the same time, because they'd be they have to use the same track for runarounds and temporary storage, etc. So you start off small and then work your way up. A little bit of history context. This is the Texas Northern in Mesquite. You notice the nice wall in the background and the fan on the right. Since it's Texas, that kept us from dying of heat stroke, mostly. And then we moved to the mall, and this was air conditioning, and there's a window behind us where people walking by could see, and the guy standing right there, he walked by and said, "Oh, trains, oh, let me join." And that's his grandson there running a train with him. And then today we're in a storefront over in North Dallas. I think it's technically North Dallas. It's on the border of Plano. And so we've got the nice painted wall, and we've got storage cabinets on the left there. And this is what it looks like yesterday. I went up and took a picture. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to the layout today, so I can't show you it live. But you can see some of the old stuff and some of the new stuff. One of our guys has been updating the scenery in the middle there. Well, let's see, that's it for that. Let me see. I've got some pictures here.
There was a question while you're shuffling there. What DCC system you're using?
We're using Easy DCC with a custom cable connecting to a JMRI computer, and that has Wi-Fi on there. So all of our most of our folks are using phones with either WeThrottle or Engine Driver.
Yep. And there's a comment, really nice presentation on loading the layout and how to use and analyze waybills.
Yeah. Yep. This is the view back. The last image I showed was the opposite of this. So this is looking back at the other wall. And you notice we've got a lot of changes there. The TX and all that has been changed. That's an older picture.
Hey, also one other thing. It looks like you've sort of drawn on the screen. Can you?
Oh, I don't know what that is. I think that's. I don't know where that came from.
There's
A line. Yeah, I thought that was just me.
no,
No.
I think it's the annotation feature. So
Yeah, I clicked something wrong there. Let me go back to here.
so if you stop sharing and reshare, it probably will clear it. Oh, there you go. At the top of the screen,
Yeah.
where you've
New
got that
share?
little green bar, there's an annotate.
Okay.
There should be a clear annotations option up there.
There's an annotate and clear. There we go. I don't know how I did that. That was weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the.
Oh, now you're in annotate mode, so you probably want to stop doing that.
How do I get out of annotate mode? I don't know how I got in there.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. So here's some other questions. Here's the view of our control system, or half of it. There's the jammerite, the control panels. We've got area control panels.
Yeah, you need to share your screen again.
Oh, okay. Let me go back and share. Share. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see your picture there of your
Okay.
control panel and.
Right. Yeah, that's our control panel. The thing on the side there is a new technology that we're using. That actually has buttons and lines that go back to an Arduino under the middle of the layout that runs a little 3-track interchange that you can't get to really easy. But it's got 3 panels exactly like that to control the same thing. Let's see. Let's no, not that one. Let's go back to here. There's our cement plant, and there's a petroleum drop-off or loading section back here on the left. Here's our Hobson, and there's the Purina feed and flour, and it's got a car in front of it. That illustrates, you could actually put like 4 or 5 cars on there, but if you did that, it would clog up the operating. So when we first came out, we had too many cars running, so we had to trim it back some, because we want the trains to be, 12, 13, 14 cars long. If you've got a 30-car train going as a local, it can clog things up and becomes not fun anymore. So as you look at this, there's the line there for the flour and the grain car, and then there's a team track in the back behind the buildings. And then all of these buildings have been put back inside in the last year. So when we moved, everything, all of this was flat. Here's the Tulsa area. And I took this to show there's 2 tracks of grain cars there. And when you come in, you pull the ones that are next to the grain elevator in the back, you move the ones on the front track to the back, and then you spot your new cars on the front track. And over on the left, there's not a car there. I was planning on doing that, staging that for next week, where that little petroleum tank is. There's a spot there for a petroleum car. So you've got to dig down through all of this to swap that out. If you plan it right, it's easy. You just put that on the end of cars that you're moving back in, and then spot it there and come back. But there's also a team track over here under the bridge. So you've got 3 different industries on that same line. And this is probably the most complicated move on the layout, except for Benson. Here's a more distant view of that. The grain elevator is back on the left, and then there's the bulkhead flat on the team track. And then there's, on that same move, there's the Swift plant and the cattle car, the stockyards. So you've got 2 spots there. So you drop off the cattle in the deep spot, and when they get processed, they go into reefers that come out the second spot. And notice that that's trailing, one's leading point and the other's trailing point. And there's another industry just off to the right there, Grimes Oil, that takes a couple of petroleum cars on the same train. Let's see, what else do we have? Here's another view of the grain cars, and this is the 1950s. And if you look carefully in the, I don't think you can see it here, but if you look carefully in the pool, sometimes there's a skinny dipper. But you can see in the background there's an 8-track staging yard. We actually added that for operations. So there's 4 interchange and I think either 2 or 3 staging trains that come out of that yard every session. They go into the west end or east end of the cook yard, get sorted and put onto the correct tracks, and then the trim job at the other end pulls cars off that track to make up trains for either this session or the next session.
Hey, there's a question whether some of these modules are left over from another module and layout in the Dallas area.
Well, no, it started as it was in Ola Padrita. There's a whole history of us on the layout on the website somewhere. I started like 20 years ago, and it was in Mesquite, and it was already sessile then. So it started as a modular, and there's a whole presentation I've got on how we moved and how you set your layout up to move. Basically, between each module, there's connections. It's either spade lugs or Molex connectors. So I've got some pictures somewhere here of the layout taken apart during the move.
I sent out a link to the club website as well.
Right. Yeah.
There's a comment here. I like the blue walls, doors, etc.
Yeah, we painted that before we moved in.
Works nicely as a backdrop.
Yep.
So, all right. To everybody listening, if there are any other questions, please put them into the chat window. So we're just about at 3 o'clock here. We want to be respectful of people's time.
Okay.
We will open this up for general discussion after Thomas is over, but if anybody has any questions, please type them into the chat window for me. How big is the club room there? It's a pretty good size.
It's about 4,000 square feet, and the layout itself is 3,000. When we were in Mesquite, we had like 5,000 square feet, so we had all sorts of storage of stuff that people had brought in 20 years ago, and we had to get rid of a lot of that. We had to pare down when moving twice.
Yep. Yeah, the purge that everybody has to do, unfortunately.
Oh yeah. But moving to the mall was actually a wonderful thing for us, because when we moved, we had 20 members. When we moved the second time, we had 50.
Wow. Yeah.
So being in there has been a really good for us.
Yeah. How much are your dues? Somebody's
Our
asking.
dues are $50 a month.
Okay. And what resources did the club use to learn about ops?
Well, back about 15 years ago, I started setting up operations, and I used rail ops, and then I used JMRI operations, but it didn't get any traction. since we were in Mesquite and we still had the old guys there that said, nah, I'm not going to do that. So it didn't fly. But then after we moved, Mike joined and said, hey, let's do operations. And he basically got us into it.
Got it. How many members of the club now?
It's just under 50.
Okay.
After we've get to know you a bit, you get a code to let you in the building in the front. So it's 24/7. You see the door on the left here. That's the front.
That's great.
There's a keypad on there. So when we were in Mesquite, we had the same thing, and we had rumors of a guy that would come in at 2 a.m. on Sunday and run, but nobody ever saw him. Nobody knew. Well, it's just you come in the next day. Oh, wait, somebody left the switch here. Or somebody moved something. So you knew somebody was there, but they didn't want to interact with anybody. They just wanted to come and run trains.
And you did say $50 a month, correct?
Yes, 50
Okay.
a month. For the coronavirus stuff right now, it's 25. We've dropped it down just to be friendly to our guys, but it'll probably go back up.
Yep.
It's because we've got to pay the rent on the
Right. Yeah, rent never. All the people talking about somebody asking how much is your rent.
I think it's like 2,500, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
exactly, but it's a pretty hefty number.
Yeah, I'd say so. That's people, and to the person who just said they're no longer, the club's no longer in a mall. You guys are actually in a storefront now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's right in the middle of it's right in the middle of a strip business center.
Got it. How often do you have? Well, prior to Corona, how often did you have operating sessions?
We did an operating session every Tuesday night.
Wow. Okay.
We'd start at 6, and then when everybody was all tapped out and the last train was run, it's okay. And then we stepped. If you look on the sequence of trains, we'd run as many as we can. In fact, that's right there. We'd run, we'd put a clipper, said, okay, here's where we started. And then the next operating session, we'd pick up there, bring in a couple of interchange trains to sort, and then start from where we were and go through the cycle.
So you didn't have to do staging or restaging?
No.
Nice.
No, we didn't do restaging.
Yeah.
And it's a car card system, so if something goes wrong, okay, just send it back to the yard and we'll resort it and take on.
Somebody's suggestion is that you need to set up a critter camera, then you'll catch the night operator. So.
Well, we were thinking about doing that, but we didn't actually.
As long as he's paying his dues, who cares? Yeah, maybe works shift work, but.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Well, we've got a couple of people that are pilots, so you don't know when they're in town. So.
What you mean? There are pilots who live in Dallas? That's.
Yes.
And even more disturbing comment: only time to operate naked. Like, okay, yeah, no, Phil, I didn't need that word picture. So.
No.
All right. Well, Thomas, I appreciate you stepping in to present today. We'll hopefully have Ralph on next week, along with Burr Stewart is planning to present, and then Bob Ellis is our backup for next week. The Facebook Live did not work. Yeah, it's okay. We actually had over 150 people at one point today, so that's great. We'll be sending additional invitations out. Probably only be able to send one invitation this week, simply because we're kind of capped on how much mail we can send out through MailChimp. But with that, I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to thank Thomas for presenting on this club. I put the link. The link was in the invitation. It's what was it? TX Northern.
Yeah.
Yeah, TexasNorthern.org. Please go out and take a look at their website. It's got a lot of pictures, lots of good information. And with that, Thomas, thank you so much for presenting.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording here, and